Hi, so today we're going to be doing a garland for the holidays, and this one is basically it's beaded rope, and I had a lot of fun designing and making this one. So let's get going. So the materials that we're going to be using is this is about a 14-foot length of rope, and it's roughly 3/8 of an inch wide. You really don't want to use anything bigger than this because it just won't look as good. Alright, so what I've done already is I've gone ahead and I've done whipping on both ends of my rope to keep the ends from fraying. And I'd previously done this. I've done a video on doing whipping, so you should probably watch that video if you're not familiar with how to do it. It's pretty easy to do. So aside from the rope, we'll also be using these beads. It's the Ceylon white, and this one is Ceylon, the white Ceylon beads, and the matte opaque white. And these are both 11/0 Miyukis, which is, one of my favorites. And we'll also be using these. These are a 6/0 bead, and it's clear with a little bit of an iridescence to it. So these will come in later. For right now, we're going to be starting with the Ceylon and the matte beads. So the first thing we need to do is we need to create the knots in our rope. And the way I do that is I want to section the rope off in even increments. So I'm going to start with getting to the center of the rope and try not to prematurely just tie a knot. Okay, so I'm going to go to the center of the rope to tie the first knot. And these are just overhand knots, and what it's doing is it's just creating sections within our piece, which I just think it adds to the aesthetic. Alright, so it's just an overhand knot, and it doesn't need to be excessively tight. You don't want to have it too super tight, because you are going to have to be sewing through it later on for the beading. Alright, so the next knot we should probably do are the ends. That way we're not going to mess up on our spacing. So we want to do an overhand knot near each end. And I would do it as close to the end as possible, because we don't have any beading planned to be doing past the end. And when you've got it hanging up as a decoration, you're usually going to have the very tip of the end embedded someplace. You're not going to see it. Alright, so now we're adding to our symmetry. So the next thing to do is we're going to continue to create sections. We're going to be matching up the knot at the center with the knot at the end of the rope to find the center of this section, and we're going to tie another overhand knot here. If I can oh, there it is. Trying to remember which end was the end of the rope. And basically you're going to want to keep track of where you're locating your knot at. And each time we tie a knot, we're going to match that knot up with the knot at the end of the rope, just to find our next section. And yeah, right here. So there's a knot. And if I compare it to my original, if I have this in half, it's going to be, yeah, the right size section for the beading. So here we have the smallest section of our rope that hasn't had a knot in it yet, and we're going to go ahead and do a knot right there in the midpoint of this area. So that actually gives us our section for where we're going to be doing this beading, and on each of these knots we're going to be doing this type of beading, and I'll show you that when we get there. Okay, so basically what I'm going to do now is I'm going to continue knotting our rope. Again, matching up the previous knots from this section. There we go. Now we've got our 14-foot rope, and it's been divided up into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 sections for the beading. And they're all roughly about the same length. It's not going to be exact, but that's okay. It doesn't need to be exact. So what we're at this point, this is where we bring our beads back, and we're going to start beading this lacy section here. So it's going to be a series of X's, but they're not really sewn in an X, it just winds up looking like an X. So it's 3, 3, 1, 3, 1, and it depends on where you started, whether you're starting with the Ceylon, going to the matte white and the Ceylon center, another set of matte white and Ceylon on the other end, or if you're starting with the matte white and going to Ceylon with the matte white and Ceylon and matte white. So it depends on how you start, what the sequence is going to be. So let's get going on this. So in terms of, I use the waxed nylon beading thread, and it doesn't matter really how much you start with, because you will actually have to be getting more thread constantly throughout this project. So your scissors and your needle are really the only tools you'll be using on this project. Okay, so the needle size that I'm using is a 12. Also for this, because we want we're not going to be going back and forth with our thread on it frequently, or at all actually. So I like to actually double up the thread. So instead of just using a single strand of thread going through, because I want this to be a little bit stronger, I'm actually going to do a double. So you'll need to actually tie a knot in the end of your thread to make sure that you're using the double thread, basically. And what I always do after I tie a knot, I trim my thread as close to the knot as possible. Alright, also on this, because I know how long it takes to bead something this big, I'm only going to, for the video, be beading the first section and the knots at either end of the section. And that should be enough information for you to go ahead and create this for yourself. So basically we're going to start with, I'm just starting at the top of this section at a point where when I pull my thread through, the knot just gets embedded between the cords and you won't see it. All right. And the way I like to start with the Ceylon beads first, and then go for the 3 matte beads, and 1 Ceylon. This is how you pick up your beads when you knock them all over your board. You just wait until you actually start your project. Alright, so this is the sequence. It's the 3 Ceylon whites, 3 matte whites, 1 Ceylon, 3 matte whites, and 3 Ceylon. You're going to take that down to the end of your thread, all the way up against the rope. And what the goal here is, you're creating 3 shapes on the rope. And since this is a, pretty sure it's 3-strand rope, yeah, 3-strand rope. So I came out here. So where I'm going to want to take my needle back in is about there, because that's about 1/3 of the way around the piece. And then I'm going to be coming out on the other side of, yeah, on the other side of this strand. It'll make sense here in just a moment. Let me get this pulled through and you'll see what I'm on about. And the challenge is to not let your thread with your beads tangle up while you're in the process of positioning it. Alright. So it does look a little strange right now, but we are positioning our initial round of beads. So that's going to be fine where it's at. So basically what this loop is doing is it's straddling this strand of the rope. So it came out on one side of this strand of the rope, it went in on the other side. And only this first round it's actually the challenge, getting it set in the right spot. So we're going to do the next one. So once we get our first round of beads on, then every subsequent row will make a bit more sense. Okay. Sorry, my thread kept getting caught on the rope. Alright, so we came out on this side of this strand, so we want to go back in on the other side of the strand, and it looks like we're going a little backwards on things, but that's just because we're getting started, and we're going to come out on the other side of this strand. And again, in a moment this all will make sense. Right now it looks kind of going back and forth and a little bit backwards, but that's what happens when we're using different mediums for more or less one thing. Okay, so now we're going to do the third section. Okay, so again it's 3 Ceylon, 3 matte, 1 Ceylon, 3 matte, 3 Ceylon. And what we're doing now is we're getting our third section completed, and we are going to